And today on Shart Stories, Derek's going to share a few experiences from his life, and I might chime in with a few experiences from my life as well. But the purpose of this show obviously is to try to bring awareness to the universal experiences that we all have in our lives, the things that really connect us and bring us together. Is poo and farts and all things bodily function. So, Derek, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Let's see. So my story kind of starts out south of the border, kind of like Taco Bell. I was adopted when I was a couple months old. I'm not sure if it was 1 or 3. The number kind of changes. So I don't know if I'm as old as they say I am. I could be older.
You might actually not know your age.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. So only a couple months, though, but it still kind of is intriguing for sure.
I'm going to say older.
Okay. Because of the gray?
Yeah.
So adopted to a family, obviously from Utah. Kind of hung out there my whole life.
How do we know each other, D?
How do we know each other? So we started working in medicine together, and that was in and of itself kind of a weird thing because that's an interesting place to meet people because you're not quite sure like if you're going to jive, if you're going to vibe, and we kind of just were buddies like day one. I was like, this guy's kind of cool.
Hey, thanks,
and he's
man.
like, I'm kind of cool.
Yeah.
So then the coolness just kind of meshed together, and here we are. How many years later? Gosh, that was what?
2008. 2008. It would have been 2008.
So 15 years.
And I remember meeting Derek. We were working 911, and Derek was a medic, and I was an EMT at that time. And I remember meeting you, and I was so intimidated because you had this kind of air of confidence, and you were super sarcastic, and even a little bit condescending. and I remember thinking, there's one of two things is going to happen. We're going to be best friends, or we're going to fight today.
I do remember you saying that years ago.
And it turns out that we ended up being good buddies, and we've been, in one way or another, been practicing medicine, whether it was as medics. I went to medic school, and you taught there, and then I went off to PA school and came back. You worked as a medic this whole time teaching and running 911, and then now went to nursing, and now we're working again together. We were working pre-hospital medicine in rescue and on the ambulance, and then now we're back working together in the ER.
Yeah, still telling the same kind of stories.
Yes, which is a great segue.
Transcend time.
Is a great segue into.
Been doing this for years.
Yeah, it's some of the. So, I'm familiar with a few of these stories, but man, you've been through some hard things with your bowels.
I have.
And I just want to know, I want to start out by saying, I see you. And and I want you to feel open and comfortable.
I'm heard, I'm seen.
Yeah, you're heard and you're seen. And though I may not have experienced the exact same things, I want you to know that I can imagine. And I'd like to go there with you now. I'd like to, dive deep into the bowels of time and hear a little bit about some of the experiences, traumatic or otherwise, funny, that you've had. So if you have a story, set it up. Give us the details.
So I kind of think I can start out in my early years of dropping dimes. I feel like I'm pretty ADHD. And so I would have to read something. I couldn't just sit there and go and then be like, okay, cool, let's go clean up and get out.
Are you talking about when you're pooing?
Yeah.
You had to read.
Yeah.
Do you think that the reading actually facilitates, because this is a thing, I actually have experienced this. Did the reading facilitate passage of stool?
I kind of think it does. I kind of think it relaxes you because I got a lot of the Reader's Digest because my mom had that. So there's like 5 or 6 of them right there in front of the toilet.
Do you think digest has anything to do with it, the word digest?
I think it, like subconsciously, was like, you got to get this out and move on type of thing. When those weren't there, I had read them, over and over again. I moved on to like shampoo bottles and conditioner bottles. Like I could probably tell you all of the ingredients in Suave circa like 88, 89. because, dude, I could not just sit there. Like I feel bored. Like I feel like somehow I need to be entertained.
And this is before you could watch reels, you know? It's before the phone.
This is before phones. This is before scrolling. This is like legit. Like I think I discovered something in my brain to help me. Because now it's the reels, it's the whatever. But
dude, I think that's a thing, because I remember being in there, and even before I would sit down, I would be like, I need something to read, and I would reach into the shower.
Yep.
And grab a shampoo bottle and be like, this is thing that's gonna make my, because otherwise I'm thinking about pooping, and if I think about pooping, my sphincter's just gonna be like, no, not
it's
today,
like snap
son.
shut. Nope.
Yep,
It's
not
like a
today.
fly
But
trap.
if you relax, it's kind of like you're
not doing that.
yeah,
but
it's like
you
I'm
are.
not pooing,
Yeah.
but I am pooing.
Yeah.
And that's
Tricking your
funny.
brain.
And
Jedi
I
mind
do
trick.
remember reading a lot of that stuff. So that's, dude,
Yeah.
continue.
Ascorbic acid and this, that, and the other, and red 40 dye, you know? It's like, but it was something like, I think it was just the mental stimulation kind of helped everything else move. And then another kind of oddity, I'd have to like be nude from the waist down. Like pants and undies were to the side.
You had to
dude.
take them all away.
Yeah,
Why?
so you could just like move freely. Like, oh, I need to grab that Reader's Digest, or I can't quite reach the shampoo bottle, or the. So like, it was just kind of one of those. I'm free.
So you
type
slip them
deals.
on. Would you slip it on over your shoe? Keep your shoes
my
on.
eyes are up here.
Keep your shoes on. Keep your shoes on.
No, because I was inside. So I mean, if the shoes were there, they were gonzo
Yeah,
too.
you kick them off.
Yeah, it
you
was
take
just like,
the underwear and the pants to the side, and that way you can kind of. And it's true. I remember a time where I would poop and my pants would be at my knees, and I just really didn't know how much I was missing in life by just pushing the pants to my ankles and being able to truly like catch a corner of my crack.
Yeah.
On one seat,
You're more agile.
and then the other, and it really opens a space.
Because when those legs start numbing up, you gotta. And you could even do like.
Did you ever
1
get your
foot
legs
in.
up? Did you? Because I know when Squatty Potty came out, that was a big deal, and it was
We'll
actually
talk
something.
about that later.
You will? Okay, let's. I don't want to jump the gun. Continue.
Yeah, so I just feel like it, and even you could do like one leg in if you're in a hurry. You're like, oh God, you know, you can put one leg in, and so the other one's out, so you can kind of like move.
So the one leg has the pants on.
Yeah,
Still.
especially if you
So
had
good.
shoes, you didn't have time to like get rid of the shoes. Then that was kind of like
Dude.
a legit movement
Yeah.
to go for. Gosh, even the younger years still, I remember riding bikes. You remember Northfield Road?
Yeah.
So before all those houses were there, there was like this empty lot there. Me and my buddies would ride bikes there in middle school. And I remember one time I had a rotten gut. I don't know. We probably ate Taco Bell, to be honest, which is great food. I'm not saying it's not, but just for that instance, it kind of.
Crazy thing though about Taco Bell for me, and just a side note is, my guts. It's like I have iron gut when it comes to Taco Bell, except this one story, and I'll tell you about that later. But my body just kind of knows what to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's like almost being it's like, for lack of a better term, it's like being addicted to something. Your body, so even though that's harmful to you, and not that Taco Bell's harmful,
It's not. It's not.
but it's interesting. My body just knows what to do with it.
Yeah, it can make it work. So we're riding bikes, whatever. And this is back in the day where they're like boxer shorts were kind of the thing with the little buttons on them. So anyway, I had to tear them bad boys off and just kind of do the deal in the bush, clean up, and then tell my buddies like, hey, I think it's time for dinner. I got to go. And then riding home with no underwear on the seat. And yeah, it was.
How'd you clean up? Did you just kind of?
Yeah, dude, I was like super careful. It's kind of like floating, levitating. That's when the 1 foot in thing works if you're out in the wild, because you can't just, get rid of everything. You got to kind of keep, like, if someone comes, you got to be like, oh yeah, I was just looking at something and I'm good, type of thing, or whatever you do to kind of like fix that scenario.
I didn't poo a lot I didn't poo a lot when I was out playing with friends. I would make my way home. I had a thing growing up where I struggled to, it wasn't until I was an adult man that I could use a toilet that wasn't mine. I mean, I could go at grandma's house and I could go at, really familiar friends' houses, but otherwise I had a block on like a school bathroom. Never. I would have an impacted bowel before I would use a school toilet for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember this, I had a friend growing up who I feel like he never pooed in his house. Like this kid just, anytime we were together, he's like, I gotta poo. And I'm like, man, like you poo all the time. And we were outside, and this one time I remember we were there was this tree, this awesome pine tree, and we'd climbed it. We were 30 feet in the air on a branch, and I got hit with an aroma unlike any I had ever had. And it was clearly that distinct smell of poo that has not quickly been submerged in water.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought I'm like, what is that? That smells, and this was not a fart. This was
Yeah, it's a
poop.
hard smell.
And I looked back, and this kid was sitting with his butt over a branch, dropping the bombs.
In the air?
In the air, 30 feet up in the tree, and he was pooping onto the ground. And I remember I asked him, I said, how are you gonna wipe? I was mortified because I thought, what's he gonna do? Like, I don't have a tissue in my pocket, and I don't think you do.
Sleeves.
What are you gonna do? And he said, I'll wipe later.
Oh, no.
And I thought to myself,
no.
you know, if it had been a clean break, you know, which I didn't get a good view of it.
Like a ghost
But I
turd?
feel like the top of it was a little bit pointed, which makes me believe
it
it wasn't a, yeah, I don't think it was a clean. I think he had some still there dangling. And so for sure he's going to have an itchy butt. But go on with your story.
Yeah, so I used my boxers, and that was great. And I also feel like sleeves are good. So if you ever see your buddies come out with no sleeves, you know. Oh, yeah. It's just kind of like one of those universal, like, got you, bud. My first traumatic bowel movement, man, it was horrible. We were getting ready to be deployed. We were at Fort Carson, Colorado.
Thank you for your service, by the way. Army National Guard, is that right?
Yeah.
What was your unit?
Triple deuce. Awesome. C battery.
Thank you, brother.
Better than everybody. So what happened is you're on this steady diet of MREs and whatever other food that is. It's like, it's called a hot meal, but it's not. It's like dehydrated, whatever, cat meat, dog meat. Just lots of stuff that you're just like, I'll eat it because it's here and I'm really hungry. But when you're on a steady diet of that, and MRE, there's these little green gums that come in it that are laxatives. And if you don't...
So it's giving you a laxative with the meal.
Yeah, because each one of those are like a 2,000 calorie meal. So, and dude, chili mac, I would eat that chili mac to this day. Spaghetti, it was pretty solid. There was some nasty, like, king chicken or something. There's some gross ones. Or like hot dogs in water. Just like you open the package and it's these spicy, gross, I believe
Vienna sausages, more like. Yeah.
And they were just they were not okay to eat. Not okay. So we're on that diet for, 5-6 days. And I'm like, and I haven't been eating the gum because I didn't know. It was like.
It's a gum?
Yeah, it's just like a little like chicle, you know, like little fellas would sell at the border.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to eat that, and then it just kind of like gets
so you chase it. It's a little bit. It's like
chaser.
Eating the meal and then having like 17 grams of Miralax.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I didn't do that. So this thing came out. I was like, oh my God. Like, when you're backed up and you really are like, I'm in trouble. It's not like, oh, this is fine. It's like, this is troublesome. So I went in front of the gun line, which was probably not the smartest place to be, but we weren't shooting, so technically it was safe, and just dropped this. I mean, it hit, because we had these CVC suits. So it was like, the grandpa suits that like zip up and that's like the fancy ones. So we had those, and I was trying to like lean over and hold it, and it hit the bottom, like where my collar was. So only am I dropping on the collar of like thing that like you could hear it hit the ground. Like I heard it, and that's when I was like, oh man. But working to get it out, because when it's it's a big hard one, and you're gonna have to like kind of work it out a little bit, like and I was working it for like a half hour, and I'm like, I gotta just push this out.
It's so like halfway.
Yeah, and because like when you stop, it's like,
oh yeah, totally.
Accordions back up. So I was like, I gotta just do this. So I went ahead and pushed her out, and it hit the collar of my shirt. And so I came back with my sleeves tied around my waist, like down, trying not to like rub that on there. And there's really nowhere to put laundry. It's not like, oh, let's take it to the laundry. You're out in the field, So I just ended up cutting the piece of the collar off. So I just was collarless. So it's like this shirt, but no collar. It's kind of like I don't know what style of shirt those are, But you've seen them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, man. Collarless shirt.
Yeah,
I mean,
collarless shirt. Yeah.
and-
So I invented that.
yeah, I couldn't imagine like your commanding officer just being like, "Hey, listen, where's your collar?" You'd be like, "You're never gonna believe this.
Sir, guess what?
You don't want to
and
know."
it was like
sir.
a Pringles can. It was fairly,
my
it was large.
goodness.
Like I wanted to weigh it, and this is back before cell phones. This was like 2003, so I couldn't
really
take
take
a
a
picture and be
picture.
like, guys, check this
Yeah,
out.
because you would.
I was
'Cause
so
that's
proud
something
of
you'd
it, but it
share,
was
yeah.
also hurtful.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of like throbbing downstairs.
Oh yeah, I mean it's hard too because I mean those huge, really painful ones where you've really been a little bit maybe a little constipated and you almost know when it starts. You know when it starts to come out and you've maybe you've exposed just the tiny, you're crowning just a little and you kind of and you're dilated to a 8.
Yeah,
plus,
and there's that hard tip out.
Right.
Touching cotton.
But when it starts to go and you're like, okay, when is this gonna be the maximum diameter?
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting more, and that moment where you're like, you realize like this is gonna hurt. I'm gonna bleed from this.
Yeah.
And you look at it afterwards and you're like, yeah, a third of that piece of poo has some bright red blood.
Yeah,
on
it's
it.
almost like they hold on to the sides and scrape their way
Oh,
down. They're just
absolutely.
so hard and like unhydrated.
That's horrible. And it's scary, those moments where it's halfway out and you can't get it to fall.
Yeah,
It's
you're kinda,
scary.
like,
There's time. Yeah,
shaking.
you're like shaking, but that's going to do no good, right? Because it's still in there.
It's just hitting your cheeks like a bell toll.
Yes. Isn't it crazy too? Like I've had moments where I panicked in those moments where it was halfway out and I panicked and I'm like, it's not going to come out. And I'm like, I don't want to reach back. And I'm like,
Grab it.
I'm like, I get toilet paper and I've done it where I'm like wrapping my hand in toilet paper and I'm
look like
like,
a mummy.
I'm going to grab this thing and like see if I can, try to get it out.
Yeah.
And then I do remember one time I risked it all. I remember at my house I had pooped. I'd probably held it too long. I was it was that time in my age where I was like playing with friends was a priority, and I told you already I don't poop anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so I'd go 2 days and not go.
Wow.
Sometimes I'd have to like sit like I feel like I have to go to the bathroom and I'm like playing with my friends. I'm like, hang on, and I'd have to sit on the ground and like wait till the urge to poo went away, and I'd be like, okay, now I'm good again. And I remember I sat down one time and I started to poop, and it was the first time I remember being like, this isn't coming out.
Yeah.
Like I can't. I'm pushing as hard as I can, and I cannot get this to come out. And I remember I risked it all because I thought it seems sturdy. It seems like a solid piece.
Yep.
I'm gonna get up and waddle to the counter. And I did. I stood up and I kept my kind of cheeks open and I waddled and it hung there. It didn't fall. And I'm like, I'm gonna risk it. It could fall on the ground. And I made it to the counter and I got a Q-tip. And I chopped that thing down. I chopped it down
You chopped it with a Q-tip.
with a Q-tip.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good of you.
I'd love to talk a little bit about kind of the evolution of, as you've gotten older, as you've gotten a little bit older, we age
Little long in the
and
tooth.
bowels get a little bit different. It's like the things that I could eat when I was younger, I can't eat as comfortably anymore. I mean, there's times where, and truly, like we're at a point. I mean, in my life, and my wife will tell you, like we judge restaurants based on whether it was worth the diarrhea.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, as you've gotten older, have you had any experiences where maybe loose bowels were a problem?
I know. I remember one time we tried California Pizza Kitchen, CPK, and that hit me
good.
hard.
Really?
It's good, but yeah, it hit me really
What
hard.
did you get?
I don't even remember. I just know like it was a pile of just hot snakes.
Oh my gosh! You mean? Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I really remember as like going somewhere and being like, dude, this was not good at all. But really, like my friends, and you're one of them, so you would tell me, like everything makes me kind of fart
Yeah.
and just clap it.
Yes.
I'm pretty bad. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the Hispanic kind of genes or whatever.
And you wouldn't be able to ask your biological parents, like, hey, did they come? They got some gut rot.
Yeah. Were you
We
guys
don't know.
equipped like this? Because I don't
Yeah.
know their names. I know my mom's name, Maria, but that's like Maria Sandoval, but that's like, John Smith here.
When I worked 911 with
500.
Derek, sometimes we'd go to restaurants, and if he saw anyone that was Latina, that looked like she could be his mom's age, he would say, "Mom," and then if she didn't respond, he'd be like, "Okay."
Yeah, I'm like, it's worth a shot. Oh, but do you remember Taco Maker in Cedar?
Yeah.
Yeah. So me and two of our other larger, taller buddies that used to work there.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
But we were thinking we were pretty cool. So we're like, let's have a taco eating contest.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, dude, I can eat 20. Yeah, 20. So we get there and we start going after it. And I think I hit like 12 or 13 and they just started tasting like flour. I couldn't taste the meat. I couldn't taste the hot sauce, nothing. And I think I got to 18 or 19. And my gut was pretty not well.
18 to 19. Now, are these street taco size or?
They're kind of like this. They're just the Taco Maker.
Yeah. I know what you're talking
and
about.
they were hard shells too. That's what was weird is they started tasting like just flour. There was
Even
no
though they
flavor.
were corn.
And the meat and everything. So we get back to the station that night, and I guess I had just been wrapped all night and stunk the whole station up because I thought that because one of our friends had burned a battery up and that really sulfur smell. So I'm like, oh man, someone burned a battery up again. It was me, dude. I'd stunk that whole station up. Like everybody's coming in the morning like, oh man, another battery. And I'm like, yeah. Yep, another battery. And like as I go back into my room, it's like a lot stronger. It's like the hot zone.
Oh.
It's like the chemical zone, and it was.
And that's that kind that's heavy. It lingers.
It's not going anywhere.
No,
even
it
with
can't.
an open window, like it's
It
just
can't.
It can't go through the mesh in the screen.
It can't. It's too dense. You would have to it cannot be filtered through the mesh of the screen.
Yeah. Real quick though, back on the traumatic ones.
Yeah.
The reason I said first is because the second one was after I had a knee surgery. Unbeknownst to me, taking a lot of pain meds all day for a week
Yeah.
and eating Cafe Rio and all your favorite foods.
Don't change anything else.
Yeah, is not going to be helpful. So finally, I was like, man, I probably ought to go try and like offload some of this dunnage, and that was my first foray into having to do a
Enema.
suppository.
Oh,
an
you did
enema.
a suppository.
Yeah.
Did you do it or did you have
I did
Haley
it.
do it? Okay.
No, that was me. And it just feels weird. It's like you squirt it up there and it just like hangs out. It's like looking around, like just hanging out. And then it just kind of like falls out. And I don't know. Did it help? Yeah, finally. But it was like a Pringles can, big ol' like just hurty
gosh.
one.
Oh, those are so painful.
Yeah.
It's so painful. Dang. I can't. I feel like it's only right that you and I talk about 2 minutes to win it.
Oh my gosh. Dude, this is
And-
one of the best stories of my life.
And I think
it really is.
Yeah,
really is.
It's so. I'm not 100% sure where 2 minutes to win it came from originally.
Your sick mind.
It was my mind, but I don't know why I did it for the first time. And it was like, when you're a kid and you kind of have a little bit of like OCD and a little bit of like, I would do things sometimes like I've got to run up the stairs within 3 seconds or my family dies, right? Did you ever do things like that? Like where you'd put these like weird challenges, you'd issue these like missions to yourself that no one else knows about. It's only in your mind. And you're like, I've got 3 seconds to get upstairs. And if not, this house goes up.
I think that's like hand in hand with having to read while you're.
Yeah. It's that same thing. So, well, I wanted to. So I remember, and I don't exactly remember how old I was, but I was having a bowel movement, and this was one of those ones where I had to go so bad, where I think I had been maybe squatting, doing something. You squat down and doing something, and it's just whatever, putting yourself in that your bowels in that position, where it literally. I mean, I felt that right at my terminal sigmoid colon, knocking on the door, and and you rattle off a couple farts, and you're really not even in control of those, and it's like, and immediately the smell hits you before it's even done, and you're like, that's a prelude to a poo, like that, it's right there, and sure. I remember going, and I had to go so bad, it hit me so hard that I was close to a bathroom. I mean, I was probably only 45 feet from a bathroom in my house. And I remember walking there and I was like so clenched. I was like, it wasn't diarrhea. I'm like, I have to poo so bad. I'm not going to make it. And I literally had to stop and like breathe because it felt like it was turning It felt like to exit, it should turn right, and it was turning left. I was like, it doesn't know where to go, and there's a traffic jam in there. Like, that's what it felt like. I'm like, this is a traffic jam. And so I remember getting into the bathroom, and I sat down, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't. And I'm like, oh, I'm barely going to make it. And I had this mission come into my mind.
Yep, I know exactly.
And it was like Mission Impossible, and it was like, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to sit down on this toilet and not poo for 2 minutes. And that's when 2 Minutes to Win It was born. Mm-hmm. And I sat down on the toilet, and I adjusted my cheeks. And your body knows. It's funny. It's like, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. When you're out and about, you're shopping, you're doing your thing. You don't need to go to the bathroom, but you get within like a mile and a half of your house, and your anus smells your toilet. Do you know what I'm talking about? And you're like, man, I'm like, how is it? Like, I didn't have to poo, but now the urge to poo is so bad because it knows it's in proximity. It's like got a honing,
it's like a magnet.
And it's like one of those, those honing pigeons. Is that what, Yeah. Where it's like, it knows when it's going to be home.
I'm home.
And your body's like, I'm going to do the thing. And so in those situations, you know that your wife can't be like, hey, can you stop real quick? And be like, no, my body knows that we're close. Like, it's going to happen. So anyway, I sat down on the toilet, and I adjusted my cheeks and sat there. And I remember I had a Swiss Army watch. And I remember I looked at it, and I was like,
do you remember the exact time?
No, I don't remember the exact time. I didn't even look at the hour hand.
Just the minute hand.
Yeah, I looked at the minute hand and the second hand, right? And I'm like, and I sat there, and I held that poo in for 2 minutes. And I was like, and I didn't have a distraction. I didn't read. I didn't need it.
You can't. You're holding.
I was literally just, every muscle in my body was just clenched. And I'm like, please, I can do it. And it was like, I don't know if it was like I don't know the consequence of failure, but I'm sure I had one. And I remember the second that got to 2 minutes, and I opened the hatch.
Bombay open.
Just a giant brown cobra. Just massive. And the crazy thing was I think the peristalsis, because my sphincter, I didn't allow it to come out. I think that my colon, all the peristalsis, was stacking it on itself.
Yeah.
But it couldn't leave. And I could imagine the very front of the pile up was like, guys, stop. Yeah. Like he's not letting us out. Like, you're smashing us. You're hurting us, Like a crowd being pushed against a fence at a concert. That's kind of what I think it was like. And anyway, I finally opened it up, and it came out so smooth that at the very end, it whistled.
Oh.
It was like, it came out, everything came out at once. There was nothing left in my entire colon. And the very last sound was,
wow. I'd never heard that.
And that's how 2 minutes to win. And I don't do it every time.
No.
But I do try to apply it when it's those really hard, it's happening. Like you got to go really bad. And so we got to tell the story of when we applied that to some of our students.
Yeah, we do.
We shouldn't say where we were, but
we were somewhere.
Teaching
the continental United States.
Yeah.
So we were there with all of our buddies, and I was, I can't remember what we were talking about, but it just kind of came up, and so I think you
hold that thought for 1 second.
Holding.
When, for some reason, I want to say that when I did 2 minutes to win it successfully, and it was clean, I wiped one time completely clean, and then did a safety wipe, and it wasn't that phantom poop. It was completely clean as well. It was the cleanest, most complete, comfortable bowel movement I'd ever had. But the funny thing is, when I had the bowel, and when I opened the hatch, I yelled, "Power to the people," and I don't know why. I don't know why I said that. I yelled it. It just came out. Like, I don't know why I said power to the people, but somehow it felt right. It felt necessary. And so when you do 2 minutes to win it, if anyone ever does 2 minutes to win it, I challenge you.
Will
I
now.
guarantee you that you will struggle, and it takes practice. Just because I did it my first try doesn't mean that you will. I'm sort of a phenom.
Poofy.
But for what, and if you yell power to the people, it just makes the whole experience that much better.
I think it does. And the thing I really enjoy about it is it's like one piece. It's a one piece.
It is.
Pretty much every time. Even if you can get to like minute 30, minute 45, and you don't win, but you're still there, it's a one piecer, and sometimes it's a ghost turd.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes you don't have to wipe. And it's nice because, you know those times where it's just, the consistency is just soft enough that it breaks too soon, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have quite enough of a hold on the remaining pieces that it never really comes out. And so you're wiping and you're wiping and you're
Like a
wiping.
marker?
Yeah, it's like, exactly like what Chris Pratt said. It's like a marker, right? And you're wiping and you're like, eventually you just give up and you accept, hey, this might itch and sting later, or you jump in the shower, right? Or you have a bidet, which we have now, which is great. One of the greatest gifts my wife ever got me. Oh, so great. But
Maybe a gift, like a parting gift.
but you know that it's a problem when you do that, because when you cut it short, like you know that the next time you poo, the first 1/3 of that next piece of poo will be a different color, because it'll be the poo from your last time
it's
that
like
you failed.
when your dog eats a crayon and you find those out in the yard, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, there's some purple tones in there. You must have eaten a crayon.
Yes. Gosh.
So, okay, back to this. So we were there in class doing whatever we were doing, learning about stuff, and it kind of just came up. So we got me, Corbin, and I think two or three other, I think there's only 4 stalls. I think there's only 2 of us. So us and I know exactly who they are. So we're all in there, and the great thing about this is everybody kind of just agreed to this. So we get in there. Corbin kind of explains.
They did the 2-minute to willing. They were willing to, and they all had to poo at the same time, right?
Yeah, which was weird. It's kind of like cycling together, but it's for dudes. Like, I just thought of that, but it totally, like, because if your buddy's like, I got to do, so I'm like, you know what?
You know what? That is true.
I've discovered something.
Like, how many times have you and I been together on a job or something, and we're like, dude, I had a poo, and you're like, me too, I got a poo. And then we got to find 2. That's so true. I never thought of that. I wonder if we do similarly, you know, if our bowels kind of link up as men, and we're like, you know what? I think the thing that's going to unify us the most is, like, subconsciously, your body's just like, if they poo together, they stay together.
Yeah, and I think it could be that, or it's like you don't want to be the first one to go, but as soon as your buddy's like, you're like, yeah, bam, let's go. Yeah. So we all get in there, we're sitting down, we know the rules, we're all sitting there, and everybody's good. We're like 45 seconds, a minute, everybody's kind of flowing, it's no big deal. We're doing the thing.
We did the timer. We started the timer for him, right?
Yeah, you had it on your phone. And I think you would give like a time, like, oh, we're at minute 15, and I think it was past a minute and a half. The best part is when you have a larger group of people, the first person kind of like toots a little, kind of like, and you're like, oh, you know, like, who was that? You know, and everybody's trying to like hold and not laugh, but your body and your gut are jiggling, so it's like moving everything. So it's like when that first fart comes out, like everybody, it's just like, and everybody's laughing, everybody's splatting, and it's just like, and that moment is great. It's just super funny.
Dude, I remember laughing so hard when they all started, because it was like one gun went off, and it was like that April morning during the Revolutionary War. Someone fired.
It's like, Concord, here we go. This is our Concord. It's our Concord Bridge. We're doing it. Yeah, because I think someone actually came in to use the urinal, because it's like four stalls and then there's 2 urinals.
Yeah.
And I think someone came in and we're all just you know, talking, and I heard him pee and then leave. But anyway, they missed out. If they'd have just stayed, think of the joy that would have brought them.
Oh my gosh.
Because like, you know, when you're at a urinal, and especially older dudes, they're taking a leak and they're just like,
yeah, what is that?
And it's funny.
What do you think it is that like gets you know, when you get up in age, because that seems to be fairly universal. Like I've been around, you know, older, really old, senior, wonderfully established gentlemen and women, but mostly men. It's like, man, is it? Do you think it's that they don't care or they don't know? Do you think it's just a lifetime of flatulence that has caused maybe some sphincter numbness? Maybe you know how they get peripheral neuropathy. Maybe they get rectal neuropathy, and they're just like, I can't. I'm like, that could have been me. It might not have been me. What do you think that is? Because it
I don't
happens
know.
a lot at the
I think it's more of
urinals.
just like when you get to a certain age, you don't care because you hear like some of the stuff they say or some of the things they do.
That's
I
true.
think that's kind of like you've reached that age, you can fart standing up on, dudes are walking by, blah, doesn't really matter. So I think it's kind of that. And maybe it's a mixture of, oh, I didn't know that was me. I couldn't feel it. But for me, like when I get there, I'm just going to let it rip and be like, hey, I've earned this.
Yeah.
Okay, son, when you get to this age and you've earned these stripes, then hammer down. But till then,
I've heard it.
it's like you've leveled up.
That's a good.
I'm level 100, so now I can.
That's a good thought. And you know what? I'm gonna have a little. I'm gonna give a little bit more grace to those, because there's times where I'll be standing next to him in a urinal. I'll be like, I'm like I'm right here, man. Like have a little
see me?
Have a little respect. But then I realize, you know what? They've seen some stuff.
Yeah.
They've seen and done some stuff, and so I think we give them a pass. I think we give. So the consensus then is we give old farts a pass to fart.
I feel like there's totally a pass.
Yeah.
But it's just figuring out like why that's happening. It's for sure a pass. They've earned it.
It's funny too, because it's never, their tone is also consistent with their age. Do you know what I mean? You never hear like an older gentleman, crack one off that's fairly tight and high pitched.
No.
It's falling out of their anus.
Yeah. It's like falling down the stairs.
Yeah. It's like it's tired, just like they are.
Get me out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more of like yeah.
And I don't know, because like hitting on that work thing, I had a partner at work, and we'll just say he, and that kind of keeps things pretty non-specific.
Yeah.
We had a student with us, and I don't even know, I don't think we ate anything like too overtly like, ooh, that's a bad idea to eat at work. But he's sitting there with his shirt tail untucked, and I think there was some candy around the station. So I'm like, oh, dude, you sat on like some chocolate. And he's like, oh, and he had shat his shirt because he tucks his shirt in. And I guess he had
sat on the toilet.
No, I think he had just had his shirt tucked in. And when he had been like grease farting, it just kind of like painted his shirt. And I was like, dude, did you poop your shirt? He's like, I don't know. He looks and he goes, dang it. So he goes and changes his shirt, and the student's just in the chair like, what have I gotten into? What have I gotten into? Yeah. What? And this is such my good buddy, such a good guy. Yeah. He pooped his shirt.
To poop your pants is one thing, and to poop your shirt that's a different thing.
Is a whole nother level. I think you're tucking too deep.
There's something with your situation.
Underwear.
There's something with your fit that is not right. You've been sized wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's like you need to have something custom made in order to make sure that's staying out of that zone. Because there's a definite zone of a hazard zone, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like in a work environment, like certain things not to drink. Like I can drink kombucha pretty good and handle it.
Yeah.
But I bought one for my partner one day, and he was like holding onto the seat, and he's got the window rolled down, and he's like sweating. I'm like, dude, are you okay? He's like, dude, I gotta go. I'm like, well, we're like not anywhere.
Not
we
at a
can
place.
go, dude.
Yeah.
He was hurting so bad.
But he held it together.
He held it. So he was kind of like a sideways 2-minute to win it challenge.
Oh.
Which I think is probably more difficult because you're not sitting on a place where you can dispose of your.
Oh, yeah. So it was like an unintentional 2 minutes.
We're like in the truck driving to the station, and
more like it's like a 2 minute to lose it kind of situation.
Oh,
like you're not. There's no success at the end of that. Like you either get there or you don't. And that's. Did I ever tell you the time I got so sick, man? And it was the night you and I went to we went to get sushi. You and Haley and Ken's and I. Do you remember this? Dude,
you told me about that. Let's hear about that.
I got so sick. So we went to get sushi. We love sushi, and we were getting dinner with our wives. It was a double date. So fun. And I remember I was like, we ate all the same stuff for the most part, but I was throwing down the eel sauce. Do you remember? And that's what no one else was eating.
I mean, I had some, but I mean, you were like basically drinking.
Yes, I was. I mean, it was like, put it on there, mix it a little bit in my drink. I mean, it was like I was having eel sauce with everything, and it was very good. And I ended up we were driving home, and I'm like, man, I just do not feel, my stomach was like turning, and I knew I didn't have a lot of time before I'd need to start, making plans for my family and what they do without me. And so I get home and I'm like sick, doubled over, and I start puking. I mean, I am sick. Everything's coming up. I text Derek. I'm like, dude, are you guys sick? And he's like, no, we're good. And I'm like, bro, I'm so sick. And we loved it. I've been to this place since. It's great. My wife was fine, so I knew what was happening. And anyway, I'm puking and puking and puking, and then the diarrhea hits. And it is like, I mean, you need, seatbelt straps mounted to your toilet for this. I mean, it was so explosive and awful. And I was nauseous too, so it was like, what do I do? I'm puking, I'm having diarrhea, like the timing of it, like, bearing down to puke was making me like feel like I was gonna poop my pants. So I go to bed, and at about 3 a.m, I wake up and I am just, my stomach is in knots. I mean, it's just churning, and it's bubbling, and I'm like, there's something so awful happening in here. Mm-hmm. So I get up, and I'm so tired that I go into the bathroom, and I go like I'm gonna throw up, and I realize that if I throw up right now, I could feel lava at my rectum, just waiting, just saying, I dare you. I dare you to vomit right now, and I dare you to dry heave, because when you do, I'm gonna freckle this wall.
Because didn't you have to like low crawl out of your bed?
Oh, dude, yeah. I was like, I couldn't even stand up. It was that sort of sick, that total stomach bug sick where you like standing up, you're like, oh, I'm gonna have a syncopal event, I'm gonna faint. So I crawl. So I'm like, I'm about to retch into the toilet, and I'm like, I can't. I'll poo. And so I'm like, I don't want to poo my pants. But the thought of climbing onto the toilet and pooping and like barfing into a garbage just did not appeal. So I did the next best thing, which wasn't a good thing at all. I just took my underwear off. Oh. And I was there naked, kneeling, like sitting on my calves. And I was like, if it happens, at least I won't poo in my underwear.
And it's on a tile floor, right?
Yeah, and it's on a tile floor.
Easy to clean.
Yeah. And I retched so hard. And have you ever accidentally like been hit with a pressure washer?
Oh, dude, yeah.
It'll take the skin off.
Stings, yeah.
I shat the back of my calves so hard that I still do not have hair in certain spots on the back of my legs.
I don't believe that.
It's true.
He is a hairy individual.
It's true. It completely like removed the hair from my leg. So I shat my legs. So we've talked about pooping your collar, pooping your shirt. It's one thing to poop your pants, but pooping your legs and your calves, pooping your ankles. Yeah, I mean, I have scars back there. I mean, I have like and so I pooped my legs and then tried to clean it up, failed. Crawled to the shower, and Ken's woke up and she's like, I knew it was bad when it was 3 a.m.
and you were army crawling around the room,
and you are
nakedness.
fetal. Yeah, you're fetal in the shower, and there's just a trail of diarrhea from the toilet to the shower, and and of course my legs were stinging, and anyway, it was that was brutal. That was one of the worst times I've been sick.
Yeah. That yeah, I remember you texting me, and I'm like, oh, that's weird, dude. Like, why is he the only one? I'm like, is Kenzie okay? You're like, yeah, she's fine.
I was dying that night, man.
Yeah, dude, that's not fun having to like crawl around your house.
No.
Reminds me of when I had eye surgery and I was blind for like 2 days, and kind of reminds me of the same thing. You're just like gingerly moving around and like
you can't really do it.
Yeah, can't really do anything.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us for this episode of Shart Stories. Hopefully it was enlightening. Hopefully you can find, you can relate, and you can find something in common with the thing that brings us all together and unites us all as human beings. Thank you, Derek Liston, my good brother, for being on the show. Thank you, Taco Bell, for sponsoring this.
Yes.
And
we'll have more stories shortly.
Yeah, very shortly.